Hello, everybody. Welcome to this brief edition of Wrestling with the Law. Here's what we're going to talk about today. First of all, I know it's been a while since we've been on, while we've been locked away into our little bunkers that exist over at the Anderson compound and over at the Anderson office. We have been trying to edit a variety of videos that we've done. We're going to have those out soon. I know I've been promising you the Pat Cronin and the Les Thatcher ones real soon. And they should be out again this time, I would figure, by the end of next week. So along with that, let's talk about what's taking place right now. We're getting a lot of questions from people regarding the fires that have taken place in California. And particularly here in our area here in the Inland Empire, because one of the things we've had to deal with is we've had to address those people who started this particular fire. And many of you may have heard that one of the reasons why this has happened is because they had what is called a gender reveal party. And a gender reveal party goes like this, for those who don't know. For some strange reason, there are people who can't seem to wait to tell everybody whether or not their child is going to have a penis. And so, in order to make sure that everybody knows that their child is going to have or not have a penis before they're born, they've then decided that what they really need to do is they need to have some kind of celebration of that. Now, the first person who started this did this with a cake. Oh, you open up the cake, you cut it open, boom. If it's blue, it's a boy. If it's pink, it's a girl, or whatever choice they're doing or coming up with. Fantastic. But of course, there are a few areas where people have to go the extra mile. So in some cases, they blow shit up. And they blow it up, and whatever the color comes out is going to be, again, for the baby. If it's blue, it's a boy. If it's pink, it's a girl, depending upon what choice they've come up with for these things. And I know if it's twins, they probably do both smokes. I don't know. And so on occasion, we found that people do this at the wrong time of year. Recently, here in Southern California, in our Inland Empire, there was a reveal party in which somebody went ahead and they wound up setting off a fire, which is one of the things we're dealing with down here now. This does not mean that they're responsible for every single fire that is taking place in California. They're not. There's ours down here. But we want to take a look at what are some of the possible causes of action people are going to have here. We're going to start with this looking at it from a criminal end. Now, I know the first thing a lot of people are going to think, bear with us, is that what we're really looking at now is we're looking at a case of arson. Well, first of all, we need to figure out what exactly is arson. So here we go. Arson requires this. What I'm giving you right down, as you can see right here, is the jury instruction that occurs here in California. Now, you need to know a jury instruction is that which is given to the trier of fact, usually a jury member, but also to the judge, to determine what elements are necessary to be proven to show that somebody is guilty of a crime. If you've ever been part of a trial, whether as a defendant, whether as a plaintiff, whether as a jury member, you'll notice that there is a time where there is a conference that the lawyers will have with the judge. And this is to determine what instructions are appropriate to give the jury. The instruction should be based upon both the law and what's been presented in court. So here we can see that arson, to prove that a defendant is guilty of this crime, the people must prove that, one, the defendant set fire to or burned or counseled or helped or caused the burning of a structure. Now, it doesn't stop there, though. It actually continues on. I just ran out of space to type. It doesn't have to be just a structure. It can also be forest land. And forest land is going to be any brush-covered land, cut-over land, forests, grasslands, or woods, personal property of any kind. It doesn't count as arson if you burn your own stuff. It does count as arson unless you're doing it to try and defraud somebody. You know, a little old mob thing to go ahead and make us extra money on the side from the insurance. Yeah, I see a few of you out there thinking about that. No, you have to burn other people's stuff for it to be an arson. But let's take another look here, because at first thought you'd think, well, let's see, did the idiot start a fire? Yes, they did. Did the audience cause this fire? Yes, they did. Were buildings burned? Absolutely. Was forest land burned? Absolutely. Did they burn a lot of stuff that isn't theirs? Completely. But we have a problem, and that is the next element. Next element is he or she acted willfully and maliciously. Now, a willful act, this is very important to remember, a willful act is an act that you intend to do. Now, I know for some of you out here, you're sitting here thinking, of course, if it's willful, you must have intended to do it. That would make sense, but unfortunately, we have to explain these things to people all the time. Yeah. So it's not enough that they set fire. The key was, were they planning on setting fire to the woodlands when they used this particular device? And the answer at what we're seeing here is most likely not. Most likely they weren't intending to set a fire. They did intend to set off their device, but the goal for that device was supposed to be merely to go ahead and let off this smoke. You can anticipate that if there is a trial, this is exactly what the defense is going to offer, that this was accidental. Now, what does it mean when someone acts maliciously? See, this is important too. It's not enough to have done something willfully. You needed to desire to be a specific kind of legal asshole about it. So here what we have is someone acts maliciously when he or she intentionally does a wrongful act and with the unlawful intent to defraud, annoy, or injure someone else. And that injury also includes the buildings, includes the damage to the property. Now, in this case, there's no evidence that these people intended to set off this device to annoy anybody. It was supposed to be a big, giant, wonderful celebration. Oh, baby has a penis. Oh, it's going to be a girl. Whatever it's supposed to be, that's what we were looking at. Instead, what we see is that so far, from what we know so far, and remember, these are all merely legal concepts we're telling you. They have nothing to do with the case itself. Their lawyers will address that as those issues come up. So it's important for you to remember, as we deal with this, that if they were not acting with the intent of harming anyone or anything, then arson is going to be a trickier kind of charge for them to face. So what else do we have? We're going to take a quick look at two other particular kind of charges. One which may get a little bit more of your attention. Unlawfully causing a burning of an inhabited structure. As we know, these homes were inhabited by people, many of them. And at the time these people set this fire, here's the standard we want to use for them. The defendant set fire to or burned or caused the burning of a structure, forest land, property. The defendant did so recklessly, and 3, the fire burned an inhabited structure. Now, an inhabited structure does mean people have to be in it. That doesn't mean that when the fire hit it, the people had to be in there. If the people left their homes because the fire was approaching, that is going to be sufficient. And there's reason, of course, here to think that that is what happened here. After all, several people wound up leaving their homes. There were massive evacuations. And part of the element for this to remember as well is that these people would have set the fire in a condition in which either 1, they intended, or 2, they should have known not to set this particular kind of fire. Now that's going to bring us to another item. Possession of an incendiary device. This is actually one of my favorites. Not to do, it's just I love the law on it. Possession of the incendiary device is the defendant possessed, made, manufactured, disposed of a flammable or combustible material or an incendiary device. And incendiary, of course, means it was capable of setting fire. That's really what it means. We're going to get to that in a moment, too. In fact, let me go ahead and show you that definition. An incendiary device means a device constructed or designed to start an incendiary fire by instant, remote, or delayed means. So, for example, merely setting a campfire would not be the creation of an incendiary device. Setting off a fireworks, that would be an incendiary device. Setting off, a box full of possible explosive chemicals, that would be an incendiary device as well. So this too does not require what we call a mens rea. And I really should have done a banner for that, but I didn't. But I think we can go ahead and do one real quick. Let's talk about mens rea. Mens rea loosely means your state of mind. In other words, did you have the necessary, what we call the criminal intent to be able to do an act? Now, this is not about your mental abilities. This is merely, did you intend the consequences of what you did? In this case, the people were not intending the consequences of creating the harm. So that's going to be much more difficult on a case such as arson. However, they did intend to set these items during conditions that were, of course, extremely dangerous. Now, how do we know that this is one thing that will be argued by the state? Should the state press charges, one of the things they're going to look at is, what were the conditions? Totality of the circumstances, you're going to hear me say this over and over again in a great deal of our legal videos. And the totality of the circumstances are, in this case, there was a fire hazard warning. In this case, there were very high temperatures. In this case, there may have been high winds, all of which would lead one to think that the last thing you want to do is to set off an incendiary device. So what does that mean? Well, it means that these people, if they are convicted, could run the risk of having to pay for all of the damages that took place. Those are some of the penalties. There's the restitution aspect. There's also the idea, of course, that they could possibly serve jail times. These are felonies, though they are, as you get down to from the incendiary device and go up towards arson, the penalties will become more and more strict. Arson obviously being the more serious because your intention clearly is to burn things to the ground and to create harm for people. So as you start to pay attention to what's happening regarding how these things start, keep in mind that criminal and civil liabilities are not as easy to figure out as you may think. What needs to happen is you have to look at what the standards are, what the elements are, and that may give us an indication as to how these things are going to finish off. All right? Now, as I said, this was a real quick one. We were happy to go ahead and talk to you about it. In the meantime, don't forget to go ahead and see us over on www.edalaw.com. Also, we want to remind you, you can follow me on Twitter at Eric Anderson Law, and don't forget you can follow my partner Sean Cork at Inland Empire Lawyer. All right? In the meantime, just remember, whatever it is you're wrestling with, let's wrestle with it together. Salute.